Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Give Freedom a Chance, the new podcast from the Libertarian Party UK. And this is going to be a regular program where we sometimes have really big guests like we had last time, and other times it will be just like today, where we will have a conversation with you, party members, and anyone that is interested to a different way of managing the common thing, the nation that we all live in. And so last time we were on Tuesday, and now we moved to the weekend because the weekend is probably the best time to just cool things down. We are not running around like headless chickens and trying to do things as much as we can. So it's time to have a small conversation and have a think about the major events of the week or anything that may be coming up in the coming days. This is actually the case because, well, 4 days from now or something like that, we will have the autumn budget. And let's say that the atmosphere in the nation at the moment is of dreadful anticipation. So we have wild speculations here and there. And so the tax rates are going to go up, they're going to go down, and there's going to be exceptions. They're not going to be exceptions. There is going to be massive increase. Maybe again, national insurance goes up, or so on and so forth. And so the whole point is that we are looking at the conversation there is in the media and in newspapers, but also on alternative media. And it seems to us that it's really detached from reality. Because most people maybe don't realize that in the real world where we all live in, outside of the chattering classes and the M25 bubble, well, people are hurting a lot. And I don't know if the bills at the supermarket go up again and the energy cost goes up again. I think that's going to be many, many British families that could really risk bankruptcy and stuff. So we wanted to have a chance to have a conversation, not just with you, the audience. And if you have any question, just drop us a comment and we will read all of them and we will try to answer them during the program, but also with some of the management and some of the directorship of the Libertarian Party UK. So we will have 2 coordinators from 2 regions of Britain, and we will also have a member of the party that is very much in tune with what is going on in the blogosphere and what used to be called the blogosphere. So then again, this is good enough as an introduction. And so let me introduce all of my mates that we're going to be having this show with. Let me turn off the microphones, and here we are. So in terms of saying, thank all for being here. And we have Martin Day, which is the Libertarian Party UK coordinator for the region of Mercia. Hello, Martin. I think you still have the microphone off. Can you turn off the microphone? Okay, hello. That's good. That's awesome. That's the beauty of having a live show. Again, Owen, you can turn the microphone on again, and thank you for being here. So where exactly do you hail from?
So I come from Wigan. I live in Wigan at the moment, but I have lived in Southport. For people who don't know, that's the northwest. Southport's a bit lesser known, but live in Wigan at the moment. So a small city, but you can still see some of the effects of the stuff that we're going to talk about later, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, that's real Britain, because when I was there and everybody was telling me, "Oh my God, you have lived 10 years in England," I said, "No. I lived 10 years in London. London is a different thing. It has nothing to do with England." Okay, and then again from London town itself, Marco Bocci, which obviously you might tell by the surname, is actually my brother. Hi, Marco.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, good to be here. And as you say, London is definitely a universe in itself. It's a very broad area, changes massively from one place to the next. So it's a universe in its own, which not really represents the rest of the country, but it's the big center, the big capital where lots of things are happening.
So yeah, one of the things that we are seeing, and actually this is one of the main problems that the whole media in the UK has, is that whenever they face any kind of subject, any kind of real issue, they are completely detached from reality, because they seem to think that the dinner party in Islington, or I don't know, the meetings that they have in Westminster or something like that, or when they go to a fancy restaurant in downtown, that is the real country. Well, the real country has got very different problems and very different issues. So then again, from what I can tell, because at the moment I'm not in the UK, I'm back home in Italy, but I keep a tight eye on whatever is going on in the media circles, not only broadcast media or regular media, but also alternative media. It seems to me that not many people are realizing the urgency of what will happen in a few days' time, because the country is not in a good place, and that's probably the understatement of the century. So this is not going to be all doom and gloom, where we'll always try to look at the silver lining. But I don't think that the people that are, talk for a living, they realize actually how people are close to the breaking point, and exactly how, disastrous can be the consequences of this budget. So I don't know, Martin, what can you tell from, conversation you're having with people or whatever you can see in your local area? Because I don't think that we are hearing a lot of stories that are coming from the country, so outside of the M25.
No, people are struggling. There's no doubt about it. To pick up on your other point about political meetings and what have you, I, for my sins, was a parliamentary aide in Brussels for a while, and seeing the excesses and the salaries, allowances, expenses that these people have is just incredible. It is a different world, and there is no way they can relate to Fred Jones on the local high street, struggling to keep his business afloat. They live in glass houses and totally detached, whereas people on the ground are wondering how to heat their home the most economically. And it's notable that budget stores on the high streets are the ones that are largely doing better than the expensive ones.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of the point in saying, because especially right now we're seeing that the I don't know. I seem to have gathered that in some parts of the country the temperature is not nearly as rigid as it was just yesterday or a couple of days ago. But I'm just starting to wonder, especially if you have not exactly a super modern home or I don't know, a flat that is built maybe in the last 10 years, so it's reasonably insulated and stuff. I'm just thinking every time you look at the thermostat, you're just thinking, okay, maybe I should put another jumper on, because if that boiler comes on, I'm going to feel it at the end of the month. The end of the month is going to be horrendous. So I don't know. I don't seem to have the impression that people are realizing that for most normal families, working families, nowadays, I don't think the middle class exists anymore, because it's been sucked down in the last few years. And I think that the alternative is skipping a meal or just raising the thermostat 1 degree and something. I don't know, Owen. Do you have a feeling, especially in the conversation and in real England and stuff, that people are really struggling, and there is a level of desperation, I think? Not exactly anger. It's kind of like people consider this as a normal part of life and saying, oh, yeah, there's going to be a budget. Yeah, Labour is in charge. Yeah, they're going to raise taxes, and shops are going to shut down. And every time I go to the supermarket, I think I was reading somewhere that aside from the fact that there is a chocolate company that decided that calling Christmas treat is now a no-go, so we should remove Christmas together. But then again, the prices are the same, but the packaging and stuff is smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So you come and say, okay, there is something wrong here. Do you feel like there is a level of anger going up? Because at the moment, I can only read desperation.
I'd say it's incredible frustration. I don't think the British really do like incredible anger. We're just not very much like that. But it's just insane frustration. It's I think there's almost an inevitability when I've talked with people about the budget that she's gonna essentially manage the decline even further, make it worse in a lot of ways, and people have almost had there's an acceptance that things are just going to get worse. So there's not really any feeling that there's maybe she'll actually reduce our energy bills, which is one of the biggest contributors to why people feel so insecure. There's maybe she'll cut taxes for people who are on lower income. No, she's not going to do any of that. In fact, as I'm sure we'll talk about, she's going to do the opposite. She's going to do take measures that will impact people who are already on the edge, as it is. That she'll probably take measures that are going to increase energy bills. Some will see their taxes increase without even starting a new job that pays them anymore. So it's just an incredible frustration, and you see it everywhere. It's this managed decline that our political class seem to be completely hell-bent on taking us down. And as you said, Luca, it's because they're in the bubble. It's this London elitist bubble that they all go into, and they love to claim, especially MPs that are from the north of England, that, I know what it's like. They just get a completely different perspective once they go into London and start having to do politics, which is just it basically warps your whole worldview.
That kind of reminds me of our honorable Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, that says, "My father was a tool maker." No, you tool. Actually, your father owned the tool making factory. So you are not working class. You've never been working class. Actually, you've hardly worked a day in your life, because aside, but that's just me, because I don't particularly like solicitors or lawyers in general. So that is just me. But that's the kind of point I'm saying. I think that this kind of frustration, in my view at least, having worked in the media for 35 years and stuff, comes from the fact that no one is offering a real alternative. So the kind of point is saying, okay, well, Kami Bent, spoke really well at Question Time. Yeah, well, of course, it doesn't take much to go there and say, well, you're a bunch of blubbering idiots. You're just screwing things up. Okay, good, awesome, gold star for you. But the whole point is that what is the recipe of the Conservatives? They're just saying, oh, yeah, we'll just reduce or we'll scrap, I don't know, stamp duty and stuff. Oh, yeah, okay, fine. So you'll have another hole in the budget. Where are you going to fill it up? No one is offering a solution. Reform at the moment, even if, it's probably the last hope in terms of saying of mainstream parties and stuff. They're not really exactly going a lot on content and stuff. So they're just saying, oh, yeah, we'll do things differently, without explaining exactly how. And where are you going to find the money? Where are you going to cut? Because I think, Marco, this is kind of the problem. No one is actually offering a different solution, which we all know. But being libertarians, we have our very own strong ideas on how to fix the machine of the government, and saying, well, there should be less of it, much less of it, and we should just shift the responsibility back to the families. Because actually, no. People in charge, civil servants and stuff, they don't know better, and they don't know what is best for us. So I don't know exactly. Do you think it's just a lack of courage, or just politicians that are trying to, because they're not even looking at the polls right now? Because I don't know if you have read the latest polls and stuff. The latest polls say that Britons are completely fed up with how things are being run these days, and they want real change, but no one is offering it to them. So how come? I don't know. I'm just flabbergasted.
I think the main problem is that you were hinting at it. I think the main problem nowadays is that because people have voted for so long Conservatives and they just didn't get what they voted for, the main sentiment now felt by everyone is disaffection. They don't know who to turn to. There's a lot of people as a reaction turn to reform. As you've rightfully pointed at, it's a phenomenon that at the moment doesn't seem to be building a lot of content, and the people who were trying to genuinely, spur a conversation and get that party moving have been sort of kicked out. I don't know if you have heard the case of Rupert Lowe. So the fear is that this disaffection will lead to basically people voting for everyone, minor parties. I think especially if the representative electoral system is passed as it seemed to be, it will probably mean a more divided sort of parliament. Labour has a lot of incentive for doing that because it will stop the reform landslides, which seems to be their most, sort of nightmare scenario. And I think the main part that people are feeling is disaffection. The main reason for it is just most of the main parties don't stand for anything. They are just offering technical solutions. They don't offer real leadership. They don't offer real vision of a different country. They are not underpinned with any values. It's just an empty promise. Yeah. So that's what I really think we should bring to this conversation. As Millet is saying, some people earlier have you have hinted at the fact that politicians are sheltered from what's really happening in the country. And Millet has said it, politicians should be the first ones to feel the result of their actions. They shouldn't be sheltered at all from the effects, because otherwise it's too easy, right? You break something, you're prepared, you don't feel any sort of pain from it, only other people, so everything's fine for you. But it shouldn't be the case, I believe.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of the problem, because we are giving more and more responsibility to people that actually have the least incentives to actually run things well. Because everything, it's basic economics and stuff. If you're spending your own money for yourself, you're going to be super interested in the whole value proposition and stuff. If you're spending other people's money for something that interests you, yeah, well, maybe you have a bit. But if you have zero responsibility and it's other people's money, you're spending like Congress, as they say in America. So yeah, okay, get here, junior doctors, yeah, give her a raise, give them a raise as well. Just like Oprah, you get a car, and you get a car, you get a car as well. Seriously, this is kind of the problem. The problem, I think that right now the situation we are facing is that every political party is run by focus group. So everything you say, I don't know if you remember the whole nation of strange, island of stranger thing that Keir Starmer spoke about a few months ago. Again, everyone is saying, hold on, I've done a bit of communication, also political communication again. It was completely off tone. It was completely different from any kind of other communication that the Labour Party was having. So I'm just thinking, okay, they tested it out. Focus group said, oh yeah, this is a phrase that works very well. This is a slogan. It's great. Go ahead. You're going to score some points. But then again, you do nothing about it. You're just sloganeering and soundbite thing, which is also the problem. The problem right now, I think that political debates and stuff, aside from the BBC, which has its own problems, again.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there, please.
Okay, no. It will require a completely different conversation again.
Maybe we can do a full episode on that. Yeah.
No. I'm just thinking in terms of saying, if you are on Talk TV, if you are on GB News and stuff, you have soundbite stuff. So you will have a couple of minutes to discuss an issue. And then, okay, commercial break, and then move on. And then you come back and it's another subject. This is the whole format. This is why I think traditional media doesn't really work in kind of discussing issues and stuff. It needs more time, it needs more conversation. And again, we have the problem that every single time you say, well, we should try to tackle the problem of, I don't know, the NHS spends a lot of money in stuff that has nothing to do about caring for the patient. There is a lot of paper pushers and stuff. And so no one is talking about that. I'd say, why the head of an NHS trust has £500,000 salary? And you say, well, because he has a position of a lot of responsibility. We want to attract the best people. Is it really the best, or is the most politically connected and stuff? So this again is just the whole point of the bureaucracy seems to be providing cushy jobs for public school educated kids that are not good enough to go into venture capital or in the city, or maybe they're not good with numbers, and so it's kind of like I don't know, the kind of subsidizing them so that they can keep I don't know, having 3 cars and a mansion and so on. Which then will be taxed. So again, I'm thinking right now, if you're trying to say anything substantial, the pushback is massive. So I don't know, Martin, we seem to be in a cul-de-sac where we cannot say anything of substance. Farage, I think that they would have some issues. So they will have some positions, but I think that political consultants are saying, don't say anything, because the moment you say something, everybody's going to get the jugular and attack you and saying, oh, you want to take away my money, and then nothing gets done. So I don't know, how can you say, maybe we should just try to take a step back and think, well, why are you taking for granted that the British government has got to have this horrendous amount of debt? It wasn't always like that up until a few years ago. I think that the ratio between GDP and government debt was around 35-40%, and now it's 100% or something, 90-95. So this mountain of debt isn't just a fact of life. It was a decision, a result of decisions that were taken year after year. Yeah, the whole lockdown thing obviously had a massive effect, but net zero again and all the stuff. Why no one has the guts to sue that? But or is there something else? Because I think I'm missing a page or something.
Every time a politician opens his mouth and mentions cuts to government spending, there's a massive civil service pushback. There are currently around 500 quangos, quasi-autonomous, non-governmental organisations. And of those, over 300 of them have a CEO earning more than the Prime Minister. Yes, they can talk about responsibility, but more responsibility than running the whole country? That always baffles me. The NHS is very similar. It's been turned into a number of trusts right through the country, and at the top of each trust you can guarantee there's yet another one on a greater salary than the PM. Throughout the board of directors, there won't be anybody that isn't on 6 figures, and that's per trust. The spending is insane. NHS employ 1.1 million people, but only half of them are medical staff. Fully 50% are admin. And when you get stupid jobs advertised that do not contribute to patient health, they're just taking money out of people's pockets. We've seen DEI officers on 90,000 plus. My favourite was an art manager somewhere down Oxford way, I believe, and they were employed at a nice salary of about £60,000, and all their responsibilities were to decide what colour the walls should be painted and what pictures to hang. We really need to get a grip of this situation, because this is control.
Yeah, I know, but this is the whole point, I think. Because right now, if you're thinking in terms of saying, well, we should put more money in the NHS, because if you put more money, you will have a better service. Well, according to what has happened in the last 30 years, that doesn't work. This is completely false, because the more money you put in, if you had more I don't know, more hospitals and stuff, local hospitals and stuff. Instead, local hospitals are being closed down by local trust because obviously, it's not good because you have a small hospital, small bills, small commissions and stuff, small salaries. And so, you don't want that. The whole point is that if you have medical staff actually requires a degree. Or maybe if you are a nurse, requires you to be good with people and actually not particularly squeamish and stuff because, looking around blood, people who are sick is emotionally draining and stuff. So you can't give it to your party mate that actually wants a cushy government job and stuff. So why not make up a billion forms to be shuffled from here to there, here and there? You only do is spend, paper pushing and stuff. This is stuff that everyone can do. I mean, idiots can do it. And so more and more people are going to be in administrative things. And no one actually looks at the percentage between medical staff and admin staff that is so completely skewed. The NHS is particularly bad at this, even if continental Europe isn't faring much better because this is a process that's been going on for years. But every time you go there and you say, well, maybe we should try to rein in spending on the NHS, everybody goes up in arms and say, oh, you want to kill Granny. Where do we hear that? I think we heard that another time. I can't remember when. But then again, this is the kind.
Surely, if you want to increase the medical staff in the NHS, then a good point to start would be to restore the bursary for nurses, and that way you're attracting medical staff and not admin staff, because otherwise the civil servants at the top are just creaming it off and there's no improvement to the service whatsoever.
But then again, it's a lot easier to go there and get someone from Pakistan or Nigeria or India, where their medical degrees actually are questionable, let's put it this way, because there is a whole cottage industry in those countries of people who are falsifying on a massive scale just in order to get a visa, skilled work visa. So again, this is the kind of the problem. I don't think people are really tackling the issue of saying, well, we're not even talking about cutting stuff, because the last time the Labour government tried to do something like that, to rein in the increase of spending on certain benefits and social spending, the whole backbench went completely ballistic and said, no, we're not having any of that. So instead of cutting the whole benefit stuff, they actually increased spending on it, making the problem much worse. So again, I think there is a philosophical thing at the end. So we've been kicking the can down the road for years and saying, it's not a problem now. Now it's not a problem now. We can wait. We can kick the can down the road. Well, folks, I think the road has run out. So when push comes to shove, we will start to have to make ourselves very serious questions and saying, maybe we should rethink everything and not give anything for granted. And I think that this is when libertarian solutions become really, really good, because actually it's a difference. It's a sea change. So I don't know, Owen or Marco, you can try to do. So right now, what would be your priority number one? If you were, let's say that I have a Harry Potter's wand and I say, Magicus, blah, 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 and you are the Chancellor of the Exchequer. What is the first thing that you would do to try to rein in the problem? The most fundamental question of all, so that we start to get into the practicalities. Go ahead.
I think it's very easy. I mean, you were saying before that, that they just, Labour is unable to reduce spending due to sheer incompetence, because the amount of spending that doesn't contribute, that doesn't affect the actual outcomes is ridiculous. So there's so much there to recover without touching the people actually delivering the real service. It's just insane, the amount. So they're not even trying, as you say, for fear of not appearing as a bad guy. They're not even trying. But the main the main priority, it's clear for everyone. The easiest thing to do without stopping, without affecting anything that the state is doing, is deregulation. there's mountains of regulations that are affecting business, that are costing to them, that are just put in and just justifying jobs that are unproductive. So the main number one war is on those, first of all. So deregulation, massive deregulation is number one. And then the second is we gotta control the spending. We gotta cut the spending, start repaying those debts, stop borrowing. That's it. One of the main things. Absolutely. Pass a law that is a requirement to have a balanced budget with no borrowing. Make it illegal to borrow. That's not how you should run a state. So that to me is the easy way, and it's not easy, because this is gonna be, people are gonna lose their jobs. Those people are gonna have to retrain. They're gonna have to find a productive job in the private industry, and it's not gonna be easy for them. But it's gotta be done. The private sector is the only sector, the only economic activity that really produces richness, that produces a positive outcome. The public sector only uses resources. You don't get richer by spending more. So that, in a nutshell, is what I would do. But maybe, Owen, do you want to add anything to this?
I'd just say that we were talking earlier about, well, there's often this mystery that you'll see mainstream pundits indulge in. Like, why is the NHS spending this? Why are they spending on what I think most people agree is objectively resources that they should not be spending on? It's because they have entirely different incentives to people who work in the private sector. If you think about what is a sign in the private sector that you're increasing your value, a fairly common sign that you're increasing your value as an employee, you start managing more people because you've shown your ability. You're an expert in whatever you're doing. You can use your abilities to lead other people. But when it comes to the public sector, they twist this to say that, oh, I need to hire such and such amount of people because, I can do this and it makes me look important. It makes these people who are not very impressive people, who wouldn't get to that manager's position in the private sector, look more important. So we ask this question, well, why do they spend so much? It's because they want to make themselves look more important. And it's similar with politicians. With politicians themselves, they really don't want to cut spending because they become less important. There's a sort of a shine about being a politic. There's something different that people get attracted to, and it tends to attract the worst type of social climbers who think
I
that,
know. That's the point.
Amazing.
That's the whole point, is saying, well, the people who gravitate towards politics are usually the people who are less suited to that, because they do it because they have a hole to fill, or because they want to feel important and stuff. So allow me just a small anecdote and stuff. So when I was back in the UK, and I was in charge of running international video news agency and stuff. We had people working from all over the world and collecting footage and stuff. And so I was managing a quite significant budget. It was 7-figure plus. And for a certain number of years, I managed to run things and get all the news that we needed and assign all the commissions that needed to be assigned and come significantly under budget. And so I just spoke to the people who was in charge of finances in my company and said, well, can you please not allocate this money somewhere else? So keep them in our budget, but just shift it from one year to the other, because we have a big plan coming and it will save us a lot of money in the long run. And this is exactly what happened. So for 3 or 4 years, I managed to run things 20% below budget. And then in one fell swoop, we spent a lot of money just getting camera crews to our offices in Australia, in Argentina, in Indonesia, and in Spain, and so on, so that we didn't need to hire as many freelancers. So in the long run, we spent less money, and so it became more profitable. And this is exactly what saved the news division from being completely destroyed when the company was sold to an American company. And then they looked at the news division and said, well, I mean, you run a really tight ship, you're good. So they didn't fire as many people as they should have. In the public sector, it works completely opposite and say, well, I have a budget of 10 billion. If I don't spend 10 billion, it's gone. It will not come back to me. It will be assigned somewhere else, and someone else will spend it. So I will miss on the benefits of deciding who gets the money, because that's the whole point. Because if I give a lot of contract to a certain person, maybe when I retire, I don't know, I will have a consultancy job, or maybe I will have a board position. And, because, when you're retired, you get bored. So might as well get some consultancy job with 6-7 figure salary and so on. So this is the whole point, is that you have perverse incentives. It doesn't work. So if you had incentives in saying, well, you are in charge of a government division, and say the more you manage to cut, actually, the more leverage you get. So it needs to be completely turned around. But I don't know if that's possible, because the law of bureaucracy is that bureaucracy always wants to grow, because the bigger the bureaucracy, the more important it has. So I don't know how exactly, because this is the problem that all empires have in the end. The Roman Empire fell not because of the invasion and stuff. It fell because of bureaucracy, because it was costing a fortune and it wasn't producing enough taxes. And so it taxed too much and then it collapsed. The Spanish Empire, same reason. As long as the gold and silver was flowing from the Americas, everything was fine. But then it became impossible. It bankrupted itself 4 or 5 times in the span of 100 years, and Spain was no longer the global power it was. So we are in a very difficult situation. I think that probably the only way to get out of this is just to change the paradigm and saying, well, maybe we should be spending less. Maybe instead of asking the government what the government can do for me, and say, well, is it really necessary for the government to do this? Because to be honest, I don't think it is. Because if you look at, seriously, let's look at things. What is the things that the government absolutely has to do? Outside of defense and, management of justice and stuff, everything else, there is a city, I think a small town in Georgia, in America, that decided that they were going to have private police. Instead of having a police department, because in America, obviously, the responsibility of the municipality and stuff, they decided, well, we're going to hire a security company and we're going to have them run security. And actually, the crime went down, because if you are a private company and you have the task of saying, well, let's not have shoplifting, please. And at the end of the year, you say, well, there is a lot of shoplifting, so I will cancel your contract and hire someone else. So they have an incentive. If you are the regular police, you just go around arresting people for stuff they said on Twitter, because it's easier rather than having to go again, trying to get someone who is stabbing people. I don't know, let's put someone in jail, because this is the point. I don't know how do we get out from this? Because at the moment, rather than saying the government should raise the tax-free area, or these are technicalities and stuff. So I think the whole problem is this: people are looking at the budget like it could be a salvation and stuff. And of course, if you're drowning, any kind of life preserver, it's a godsend. But I think we should probably do a bit more. I don't know, Martin, what is your take? How can we get out of this?
An interesting snippet about the civil service. The British Empire ran on 40,000 civil servants. We now have 495,000, plus as many again employed by assorted quangos. And I don't think the incentives there for each individual quango to reduce. I think we have to look at actually closing a good number of these. If I can give one example before I go, there are 3 different quangos that set regulations about the sale of milk. They overlap each other. It is absolutely insane. And to have DEFRA, who are supposed to be in charge of everything, and then you've got the Food Standards Agency, and they are contradicting each other, we are in a world that we don't really want to be in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know it's but this is actually part of the plan, because this happens everywhere. I live in Italy and stuff, so obviously in Italy, this is pretty much the foundation of Italian bureaucracy. The fact that there are 5 agencies that have the same kind of overlapping responsibility, and they keep the time shifting papers from one seat to the other, and usually you are the one that has to move them, because apparently they are completely unable to use the postal service or to have a courier send the stuff to them. So you have to pick them up from one place, go to another place, and then they say, no, we don't agree, go back. And then it seems like, I don't know if you remember the Asterix movie, where I think it was, there was one, you know, the cartoon where there was one of the supplices, one of the several trials that he had to do was try to actually come out of of a building, of a government building, where they would keep sending him from one place to the other, one office to the other, one gate of the other. It was completely nightmarish and stuff. I had the same experience in Egypt many years ago when I had to have my visa renewed. I went to the Mogamma, which is the Ministry of Interior, and they kept sending me from one office to the other. After a couple of hours, I had a friend of mine, an Egyptian friend of mine, and she was the daughter of a minister and stuff. And after spending 2 hours, I was just like this and saying, I will never get this visa extended. It's too crazy. And she said, can I do things the Egyptian way? And she said, well, I said, well, yeah, go ahead. I don't care. Do whatever you do. 5 minutes it took. She came to them. She spoke to the first guy I spoke to, and she spoke to him in Arabic. I don't speak Arabic very well, but I seem to have the gist of the whole thing was, I'm important, put this stamp on his passport now. 5 minutes. Stamp the passport. Okay, you can be 6 months. I said, but I asked for 3 months. No, they gave you 6. Okay, fine. This is the whole point. The more regulations you have, the more chances you have for people to have preferential treatment, which is the whole point. Little people get stuck in the back and forth, and important people who are connected, they solve everything. So I don't know, right now, what is your expectation? Let's get down to business. What are your expectations for the budget? Is it going to be as dreadful as they think it will be, or it will be a whole nothing burger? So it will be moving things from here to there. They will raise taxes and nothing substantial will be done. Because I think that right now they're putting a lot of, as the French say, ballon d'essai. So they're saying something and say, if I say that I'm going to freeze the tax brackets, what is the reaction? And then they say, no, we didn't mean to do that. And they change again. So I have the impression that it will be maybe raising taxes and something, that nothing substantial will be done. Am I missing something?
No, I don't think you are. I think it could be a lot worse. Obviously, we, as being political hacks, will have seen the Greens absolutely surging in the polls in second. But we could have them, which is a lot worse. One of their budgets would be catastrophic. But this particular government seems entirely captured by public opinion. And you alluded to it there, where you said that they just keep throwing out certain ideas. Like they talked about raising the basic rate of tax and then cutting national insurance by the same amount. There was a big backlash, and now they've gone back on that, and now they don't want to do that. I think we will still see a self-tax of sorts. Obviously, she did this in her last budget. She's just going to freeze the income tax thresholds again, which means that it's. I think the number is like it'll raise £7.5 billion more tax revenue for her to fill that black hole that she's so incessantly pursuing a closure of. But it effectively is a stealth tax because inflation is making people's wages. It's dragging them up into a higher tax band. And you haven't even done anything. You haven't even moved job, and you're still seeing a tax rise in some circumstances. And when you're on the edge, that pushes you over it. And it makes you no incentive to get anywhere in life as well. And she's also talked about cuts on VAT on energy bills. And you mentioned before, Luca, that politicians just moving funds around instead of actually making any actual change. And what she's just going to cut the VAT on energy bills to make them look like they're doing something, make it a bit cheaper. But she's just going to shift that into general taxation. So it might be dispersed better, but it's not actually, nothing substantial, nothing fundamental has actually happened. So I think we're just going to see more of this just political chicanery of just moving funds around and claiming wins. And
okay, there is an amazing expression in the Neapolitan dialect that actually has a backstory to it. It's they say "fascita muina." So pretty much this happened back in the 19th century when Naples was a kingdom, and they had the king come to one of the battleships in the harbor of Naples, and the commander of the fleet went to the captain of the ship and said, "Well, why are the sailors just standing there? They're doing nothing." But I said, "Well, we are harbored. We have the anchor down. There is nothing to do." "But that is unacceptable. The king is coming. Let them do something. Just move things around. Raise the sails." "But we're not going anywhere. We have the anchor down. Do something. Do something." And it's fascita muina. So move things around, change nothing, so that actually nothing changes. This is kind of the point, because people are not. I don't even think it's a matter of sophistication, because when it comes to personal finances, people are mostly aware of how things are. It's just give them a talking point that their friends in the media can go on for ages, and you will have people on Channel 4 or maybe, I don't know, Question Time saying, "Well, the government did something. They reduced VAT on energy." Yeah, but they raised it on general things. So I'm not paying them in the energy bill, but I'm paying them every time I get out of the supermarket. So what is changing for me? A whole lot of nothing. Actually, the bill rises a bit. So Martin, again, what is your worst fear?
What is my what, sorry?
Your worst fear. So come Wednesday, when Rachel from accounts, as people like to call her, will come out and present the budget. What is the worst thing that you are fearing that it could be in the budget? What is the most damaging thing that they can do? Because knowing this Labour government, they will probably do it.
Yeah, I think there are the two worst things that they could do. One is to increase VAT. VAT is a very inefficient tax to start with. There's more corruption going on in that sphere where, you collect money for the government, but then you claim money back on what you have spent. It's an inflationary tax as well. So you're then pushing, eventually you're pushing the cost of wages up. And also the cost of employing people. So my second fear is that they add even more to either income tax or employers' national insurance. It's all making it almost impossible or less feasible to employ a greater number of people, and a number of firms are looking towards technology to replace them. The supermarkets, we all have to scan our own goods. I refuse, but a lot of people don't. And yeah, it's going to lead to less employment, more unemployment, higher benefits, and it all goes in a circle of doom.
Yeah, so I think that I was also quite afraid of seeing, because nowadays the latest fashion in thinking fashion in progressive circles and stuff is the whole point of saying they all against the boomers, because they are losing the youth vote, because youth is shifting to the right and actually is much more receptive to libertarian things, and so they're just saying it's all the boomers' fault, it's all their fault and stuff. So they're talking about wealth tax, because the mansion tax that Rachel Reeves proposed a bit ago is actually a wealth tax. hidden and stuff.
Yeah.
But people tend to forget actually what happens when you put a really punitive wealth tax. I would probably tell everyone that is listening and stuff to say, go look at what happened in Norway. So nowadays, I think, especially in the UK, people are so enthralled by the whole Scandinavian socialist thing and say, oh, this guy, if only we could be like the Swedes, if only we could be like the Norwegians. Well, aside from the fact that Norwegians have a lot of oil and gas and they're actually extracting it rather than keeping it in the North Sea, that's a different thing. But then they put a really huge wealth tax on people who earn more than, I don't know, a certain amount, several million and stuff. And they were projecting to get around 800 million euros, or the equivalent of 800 million pounds in revenue. And instead, what happened was that the billionaires decided to just leave. And they went to Dubai, they went to Milan for some reason and stuff. And so in the end, the Norwegian government lost 500 million instead of earning 800 million. Because the really wealthy people, they are not going to pay the tax. They are moving. And actually, I just read lately, I think yesterday, I just read that last year, 250,000 people left the United Kingdom to move somewhere else, move to America, move to Dubai, Singapore, and stuff. And these are not 250,000 people that actually had no value. These were the entrepreneurial people, the people who were highly qualified, the people who actually have a place in the global market, and not the people that are weighing on the on services and subsidies and stuff. So, Marco, again, what is your latest fear? Do you think that they will do the impossible and do something good for once? Because, hope springs eternal, as they say.
Well, I don't think they're going to do anything good, but there's a certain amount of risk that they will, again, break some manifesto promises. I think, well, people are desensitized to that too by now. I mean, we know they lied. We know they're not doing anything they promised they would. So that wouldn't be a massive surprise. I think the only thing good that they're doing at the moment was their endlessly amusing mantra of stabilizing the economy. Well, it might have just become a reality. They have successfully stabilized the growth of our GDP, where it's not growing anymore, but I'm not sure you would count that as an achievement, if you like. So, as you probably know, the GDP, if not going up, is more likely to go down very soon. So, well done, Labour, for that. On the things that I probably find most damaging in the next budget, it's again rumors. We'll see if it's true. But the changes to the ISA allowances to allegedly push people to invest money in the stock market. I don't understand how they would think that's a good idea, but there you have it. That's what they want to do. So they want to change the ISA allowances so that you're not allowed to keep as much amount without paying taxes in the cash ISA, but you have to put it in stocks and shares. And the other bit, and as you probably know, Luca, this one is a favorite in Italy, the old let's raise duties on fuel, which affects totally the economy everywhere. So you will feel the effects everywhere in mostly inflation, because it's going to push prices up of absolutely everything. There's rumors of lifting the 5p, reversing the 5p cut. And also, there's also talks of introducing a pay-per-mile sort of scheme for electric cars, because they're losing some money, obviously, with those, they don't buy fuel. So, yeah, a whole lot of good things, if you like, that are very likely to damage the economy.
Yeah. So the good thing is that both you and I left Italy because Italy was so dysfunctional. We couldn't get a proper job, and in our relative positions, me in the media, you in the geology and stuff. and actually the UK is becoming a lot more like Italy. So there was an Italian economy minister, maybe in the 50s and stuff, when Italy was actually growing, that said that every idiot can raise taxes. The real good minister, if you are a really good politician, if you manage to grow the economy without raising taxes. And apparently this lesson was completely lost on whoever is there. But as you're saying, the whole ISA thing, it strikes me as really, really odd, because I think the allowance nowadays is still £20,000 per year.
Yeah.
And I was looking at myself and saying, okay, fine. I had a reasonably well-paying job. I never really maxed my ISA allowance. So I'm not exactly saying when the Tory government raised it, I was just thinking to myself and saying, okay, well, I don't really understand how or what. Of course, you have the finance bros and the people in the city that are going to say, well, if you have a bunch of money sitting down in these ISA accounts, we can use it to just go there and play on the market and do stuff. And maybe they were not earning enough commission on that because ISAs have very low fees. Or actually, I don't even think they have fees. So the whole point is that if you're shifting it to the stocks, to the stock ISA, at that point, stocks and shares, you will have commissions on every trade that you do. So obviously, they will earn more money. So again, this is just a point in saying, well, because the big problem is, I think a guy, a viewer from the chat was saying, well, Rachel Reeves is going to resign because at the moment she presents the budget that the stock market will collapse. They will lose a bunch of billions pounds in value. And so she will resign. Okay, fine. That's pretty much a given. She's a dead woman walking, politically speaking. But I don't really think that changes anything, because at the end of the day, the budget will keep destroying the economy. Because I don't know how can they, honestly, how can they think to raise again taxes? Doesn't she know that fuel is pretty much the foundation of everything? Because sorry to just break the bubble and stuff, but stuff doesn't magically appear in the supermarket aisle.
Yeah.
You have people that stock it there, and you have trucks, lorries, as they usually call it in the UK, lorries that bring them from A to B. And so obviously, if you raise fuel duties, obviously it's going to have a avalanche effect. And so the cost of living crisis, because Keir Starmer, she's now in South Africa to his good friend Ramaphosa, that obviously it's.
But Luca, don't forget that the budget is now, because of the level of debt that we have, is mostly an exercise in showing that they are in control and they can. So it's more like to show the sort of international investors that she can actually get the money. So they, as we're saying, it's going to be a nothing burger. There will be in there enough taxes that they plan, that they can demonstrate will bring enough money to keep borrowing, because that's their goal. So I mean, this is one of the things that's why I'm saying is going to make it likely, this increase in fuel duties, because it's just one sure way to get in a load of money, and investors are probably going to see this as a good way to get more funds.
Yeah, actually, it's while it's extremely damaging to the economy, it's actually easy to impose and stuff. So you don't have any cost in raising taxes, because a lot of politicians have this idea of, say, you have the fashionable taxes, and say taxes on luxury, taxes on whatever. And this is as old as the French, the French government and stuff. In the 17th and 18th century, they were big on luxury taxes and stuff. But actually, if you look at the revenue that you earn, the cost of going after that tax sometimes is higher than the revenue that you get. So it's really inefficient. While if you raise fuel duties, well, it's super easy and it's guaranteed. So the whole point is I think they are between a rock and a hard place, because they must show the investors, institutional investors and so on, and the big funds and everything, that the UK government is good on its debt. So it's able to extract enough money from the taxpayers so that they can repay at a reasonable rate, because otherwise it's going to be a compounding effect. because right now, I think the interest rate on the gilt is really high. Actually, it's much higher than when Liz Truss was unceremoniously defenestrated from government after 72 days or 74 days. I can't remember. So the situation is much worse. But apparently, the Financial Times and the Economist doesn't have anything to do with this. They say, yeah, it's all hunky.
But they don't talk about it. No, it's all good. It's all good. They don't talk about it. No, it's fine. It's all good. It's all good. Let's keep going.
Okay, so Owen, again. Everyone is already thinking in terms of saying, will Keir Starmer get to December? I think sometimes, well, in Italy, say he's not going to eat his panettone because it's a traditional cake in Italy. So if you are a football manager and your team is not doing well, they say, oh, well, he's not going to eat his panettone. He will be out before Christmas time. So everybody's saying that. In terms of saying, are we going to have national election sooner than expected? Well, now everything is up in the air. So all the scheming, we can reasonably agree that Rachel Reeves doesn't have a lot of future at number 11. So I think that probably she will be out of the door after the budget is in. But as far as Keir Starmer goes, I am completely lost because I'm hearing so many rumors all the time. They say West Streeting is sharpening his knife, and then again you have Burnham. They say no, there's going to be this guy in Essex is going to give up his seat, and then Burnham can have a by-election so he can be in Parliament, so he can kick out Starmer. So I don't know. Have you been following this? So what is kind of your feeling in saying, is he still have a few months in him, or is it already at the end?
I think once you start about talking like how long has he got left, it's not a matter of if, it's when. I mean, politics moves so fast that we kind of just memory hold the whole Burnham coup attempt. Like, the only reason that didn't really gain more traction at the time is because he wasn't an MP. There was so much in the media, so much hilarity about like how Burnham is suddenly going to depose Starmer because Burnham is supposedly this man of the people. He's taken his city, to the 21st century, and he's doing much better than the current government's doing. When he would just do everything that Starmer's doing, but turn it up by like 10 miles an hour. Like it's not too much different. These issues that we've talked about, this higher spending, more taxation, more regulation, he would do that, but just say, oh, well, I'm going to do it in the correct way. Starmer didn't do it the right way. When we know that's folly. It's not going to solve anything. He's just going to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic.
I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been to Manchester, but I've seen some very, very disheartening videos coming from really that city centre and stuff. There was this big garden smack in the middle of Manchester, and I remember looking at a film from the 1950s and 60s, and it was absolutely lovely. It was splendid. You had flower pots everywhere. It was truly a very remarkable place. If you go now today, it's people dealing in illicit substances and the usual kind of petty crime and stuff. So it's pretty much a dump. Let's not talk about Birmingham, which is an actual dump. And again, so I don't really know why Burnham was supposed to be like that. I think it comes back to the whole kind of point, the whole eternal debate about communism. Communism they didn't do it right. Every single time that it's been tried, it's failed miserably, resulting in totalitarianism, gulags, and mass murder and stuff. But no. But this time we're going to do it right. So Martin, at this point, I don't know even if we should we care that the Labour government is imploding and stuff? Because I seem to remember that Belgium and a bunch of other European countries, they stayed without the government for many months, and actually things improved. Because without the government, they couldn't do as many damages as they could when they were deciding stupid stuff. So I don't really know. What is the best solution? That it just goes out and we have early election, I don't know, maybe in the spring, or maybe, I don't know, God forbid, just May, when there is the local election, provided that Labour doesn't come up with another excuse to push them another year. I don't even know what is the best for the country, not just for the whole political system.
Spain ran without a government for 6 months, and as you said, with Belgium, the economy improved. So the best thing for the country would be for there not to be a government. But my personal feeling is that Starmer will be gone by the conference season next year. The budget is bound to be unpopular. In May, he's going to lose hundreds and hundreds of Labour councillors, and the pressure on him will build. Burnham is in an awkward spot. He's on a very good salary as Manchester Mayor. Is he going to risk it? Even though Clive Lewis has volunteered to give up his seat in Norwich South, there's no guarantee that Andy Burnham would win. If you look where Norwich is, it's right in Reform territory. And all that Clive Lewis might be doing is just giving up his seat for Reform, which, quite honestly, is likely.
That would be so perfect. That would be be amazing. Just like the best laid plans, and it all just blows them up in their faces. So, Marco, again, what is your take? Is it going to be? I don't know. I would think that the situation is unsustainable, because I don't think he isn't liked by anyone. He's the least liked prime minister in living memory. I don't even know exactly how back do we have to go to find another prime minister that is as detested as Keir Starmer is. And at this point, there is no one that likes him. So junior doctors are up in arms because they want more money, no surprise. And then civil servants hate him because obviously it's not giving them enough money, because it's never enough. And the real socialists, real communists hate him because it's not left enough. And Islamists hate him because obviously they're doing that. Shabana Mahmoud came out and said, oh no, we're going to reduce immigration and stuff. And they're all up in arms for that. So obviously conservatives, the 3 conservatives left, because I don't know if you watched the latest poll, they're down to 14 seats. Operation 0 seats is proceeding splendidly as far as the Tories are concerned. They hate him for that. Reform people couldn't look at him. So the city doesn't appreciate him. The big industry, whatever industry is left in the UK, doesn't appreciate him. So I don't know what kind of ally does he have. Is it going to be enough? He's a very unscrupulous fellow. He may look like he's your fuddy-duddy normal person, but actually he's got iron will when it comes to political infighting. So he knows a thing or two about pushing people out. We've seen with Jeremy Corbyn and with the other people from the Labour. So has he still got some life left in him, or is it going to be a slow decay until he's finally kicked out of 10 Downing Street?
I think you might be right. You might be right there. The man has got skill, that's for sure. He's cleaned up the house, the Labour Party house, properly before, just after rising to leadership. He dug himself into a deep hole and basically made the job so difficult for anybody at all that nobody wants it, I think. At the moment, the only hope that Labour has is to score some political points before the end of their mandate. As Martin hinted at, all the Labour MPs are pretty much guaranteed to lose their seats, or very in danger of losing it. So at the moment, that's the last thing they want, general elections. And I frankly don't see anyone who can take him out. The man's got thick skin. He's hated, and I think the whole party is hoping that him and his gang will manage to turn things around. I honestly don't see any hint of that happening. So if the situation gets really critical and bad, something could happen. But I think it's hard. Whatever they do, I mean, he's put himself in a position difficult to replace him, because the job now is nearly impossible after these months spent squandering any money that was there. Now there's basically only pain going forward, so nobody wants to take that. So he's the only person who can do anything useful at this stage for Labour. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen, but if he's going out, it's going to happen in a while. He's going to go down swinging, and I honestly don't know who want to take the job from him at this stage, because there's only bad, politically unsavory choices ahead, and chances are that whoever wants to replace him later much rather have him take those decisions and take the blame for it. I mean, it can't go any worse than that. His popularity is at the bottom, so he might be at a point where he might push on with reforms that are unpopular because he's already, below than that you can't go. I mean, many examples like this stupid thing about digital ID. Lots of Labour voters are still asking what the hell are they doing with that. Again, probably a subject for another episode, but I think he's not going out easily.
Yeah, I know this kind of problem. I think at this point we're having a bit of a situation, because obviously from the chat they were asking us to say, well, will the Labour rebels decide that this is the right moment to strike? Frankly, I don't really think so, because obviously they have they're seeing the writing on the wall. Because now I think in a couple of surveys and a couple of national polls, they've been overtaken by the Greens, because apparently this complete lunatic that is in charge of the Greens, and this very questionable character, has got the Mamdani effect. Is young and charismatic, and young girls like him. Yeah, sure, but he's a complete, muppet. It's completely insane. But apparently this works in certain areas. I think I saw a couple of local by-elections, the council seats and stuff. The Greens pretty much destroyed Labour, and I think it was in East Sussex and stuff. And I also saw in East Sussex that pretty much the Tories lost something like 40%, 40%. So they had 60 something. They precipitated and lost the seat to I'm not sure if it's the Greens or Reform, but something like that. So Labour is losing so much ground. Labour hardcore voters hate him. The kind of like working class Labour think that the party's completely gone crazy. The Greens are working well with the youth vote, and obviously you start to have Islamist alternatives popping up here and there in the nation. So from a political point of view, right now, if I were a member of the front bench of the Labour, I would just say, yeah, go ahead, have a complete suicide of your political career and do as much damage as possible. But I really don't see a way out. But at the same time, where does it leave the Libertarian Party? Because right now we've been talking about what is happening in the big parties and stuff. So this situation, do you see any kind of inroads where we can start to have reasonable conversation at a local level? Because obviously it needs to be from the ground up, because we're definitely we would love Alex to be invited at question time every other week, but I don't know, it seems to be, as considering the BBC and stuff, it's not going to be extremely likely. So is there a way, Martin, to just have a way to just start talking about substantive matters and at a local level, so that actually we can start building a kind of consensus, or at least introduce into the public debate the conversation on real issues, in terms of saying, well, yeah, maybe we should get rid of 400 out of the 500 quangos and stuff, and then cancel a lot of the new Labour Blair legislation that has been so damaging to the country.
We are starting to have meetings locally in the various areas. We used to have a lot before COVID hit the country and the lockdowns, but that conversation is coming again. I think we have to accept that the next big election, reform, it's all going to be about reform, cracking the old duopoly. But we've got to keep putting our ideas out, because as soon as reform are found out to be pretty much the same as the others, and that there aren't going to be massive reductions in government expenditure, and we can look at Kent County Council for that. They're having to put their council tax up because they couldn't control the spending down there. So if they can't do it on a county level, how are they going to do it on a national level? And we've got to be ready with our arguments to give an alternative, a true alternative, and put the point that private enterprises are always going to beat a public service.
Yeah, so in terms of saying, Owen, I think that you are pretty much more in touch with whatever is happening in the famous Red Wall stuff, so in the northeast of the country. And so do you think that there are inroads that the Libertarian Party could be there? Because right now, I think that the people that live in that area, I lived in York a long time ago, back in the 20th century and stuff, for a couple of months. And Yorkshire people and kind of like Northeast and stuff, they don't seem to be particularly receptive to the whole green narrative and stuff, the whole lovey-dovey stuff that works so well in the Southeast and stuff. It's not exactly in line with the zeitgeist of the area. So do you think that there is a possibility that actually the discontent with the main political parties can open a way for real conversations, for actually a different way of thinking, more in line with personal responsibility and grit and determination, something that is very much been the foundation of the Industrial Revolution and the miracle that was Britain back in the day?
Yes, I'd say so. I think when you talk to most people, they have a sense that the system is broken. Problem is that I think our explanations for why it's broken are fairly long-winded, and people don't care much for politics. People have quite a short attention span for politics, justifiably, by the way, because if we spend our times listening to the pontifications of politicians, and we get bored, and we kind of like this stuff. So, but there's definitely an opening here for our ideas to sort of get into people's heads that, I heard this idea, I might not necessarily agree with it, but as time goes on, they'll see that Reform are probably going to win the next election. Okay, 3 years is a long time in politics, but they're probably going to win it. They're going to win, come in, say certain things, having said, we'll cut migration, we'll cut the size of government, all this sort of stuff. Probably won't deliver on it very well, if at all. Do lots of U-turns and then effectively, be seen for the frauds that they sort of are. And then the problem we've got then is that it tends to be that the pendulum of politics will swing in the opposite direction. And I think this is where we have to be careful that I think people will think, oh, well, Reform or right wing, that didn't work. We'll swing back over to the left. And if the Green Party and this, well, they're not really a party yet, your party, but if they play their cards right, they could end up becoming way more appealing than they already are. And obviously they'll inevitably fail as well, but it's on us to be consistent all the way through this, make the inroads, be consistent with people. And then at the end of the road, we'll be able to say to people, look, we were telling you this the whole time. Just put us in the position to make a difference. Yeah,
that's kind of the problem. That's really kind of the problem. Yeah, political junkies like us are able to sit through. But I'm just putting my hands up and say I cannot stand more than 3 minutes of Keir Starmer talking. It's just a matter of feeling. Something in my stomach happens, and I can't stand the guy. Not just for political reasons, but probably just because of this attitude and stuff. But the whole point is that your party, they're already fighting. So the whole communist Islamist thing is already falling down, because Islamists, especially considering they have a fifth column in London with Sir Sadiq Khan, that is doing everything he can to just turn it into, I don't know, a version of Riyadh or any other, or Islamabad maybe. So it's doing his utmost for that. And so they're already falling to pieces. But the Green are particularly insidious because they're total lightweights. They have no ideas. They're all this feeling politics and stuff. It feels good to say, oh yeah, I'm a Green, I'm for the environment. And that is particularly pernicious in the London bubble. And now I'm coming to you, Marco, because you're obviously front and center at the madness that is the M25 bubble and stuff. I don't know if you're aware of what is going on downtown in the posh areas where you have these famous dinner parties I was never invited to, not even when I was living there. But anyway, I think that is London seems to be completely gone. Not just from the point of view of saying, okay, it doesn't look British at all. This has been the same thing. I mean, we arrived in the UK back in when? 2011, if I remember correctly. 2011, we were here. You were down south, more towards Brighton and in Sussex and stuff. I was down in West London and stuff. So it didn't look particularly British because I had been to York many years before, and that was as British as it came, because back in the late 80s, it was still Britain. So I was lucky enough to know it as it was, and it didn't look like it. But also from a political point of view, London and in general, parts of the Southwest, not exactly, well, East is different because Essex and East Anglia and stuff, they're more like reform territory and stuff, but especially the Southeast, the Lib Dems still have some strongholds and stuff. You have crazy Brighton with the Greens that I don't know why they keep voting for them, but that's another thing. But London seems to be particularly resistant to any kind of sanity. It's just that it seems to be going crazy and crazier to the left. So I don't know. Is there any way to make inroads? Because the situation isn't great. I mean, I've been, last time I was there, it was it was last year and stuff. Situation wasn't great. In South London, it wasn't great at all. I could see the decay going. So why are people not waking up to the fact that this kind of policies are clearly not working?
Yeah, I mean, the main problem with London is that I think the people are more disillusioned here. I mean, you've mentioned the election of the mayor, Sadiq Khan. There has been extraordinary low level of turnouts during that election. I was disappointed because I thought he would be voted out after these horrible years of, spiraling out of control crime. And I mean, for me, that would have been enough to see him out of the door. Anyway, he got elected with extraordinary low turnout, which you can see something similar happen when they've elected the current government. I mean, if they've counted the votes of people not going, we wouldn't have a Labour government today. So I think the key point to get anywhere in London is to win back interest in politics. And the way to do it is, you've mentioned the Greens, and you've mentioned, I would mention even the social, the SDP. What was it again? I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, SDP.
Their name, Social Democratic. But it's to speak to people about values, to speak to people about having a clear view, sending a clear message saying this is what we want, this is what we stand for, this is what we're going to do. And this is not going to change. It's not, if you don't elect me, the next guy is going to be totally different from the same party. No, you're going to get the same. So I think that's the real battleground there. It's hard because you start from the very bottom, but you need to win back people, bring them back interested, bring back their interest in politics. And you do that only by proposing, clear message, clear values. We talked about the green, why people like the Greens, because they give that message, that it's a clear message that we don't agree with, but at least it's something, it goes into direction. They hate the rich, they want wealth taxes, they want the universal income. They know what they want. Like, you might not agree with it, but at least it's a clear position. You don't get that from Tories, you don't get them from Labour, you don't get, I'm not sure you get them from Reform. From Reform you get, as we were saying, just we want lower immigration, and that's it. People, there's a big vacuum there, and I think small parties, especially if they really do electoral reform and introducing proportional representation, that gives a big chance to small parties like ours to make some, to even, hopefully make it in Parliament easier than what it currently is with first past the post. So I think for the next election, there's going to be a very divided Parliament.
Yeah, that is a. But at this point, we will not get into the whole debate about first past the post versus proportional representation, because it would need a completely different podcast episode. Maybe we will do that once it will come into the political discussion of today. But in reality, I think that we need to go. I wouldn't do probably the Lib Dem strategy of just focusing on certain areas was very politically effective. Even if still no one really knows. I think Ed Davey, aside from some stupid stunts during the election season, because it will look good, it will become viral. Yeah, you will become viral like a complete idiot, making a fool of yourself. I don't know, to each his own. Apparently there is such thing as bad publicity, no matter what Oscar Wilde or whoever it was, Mencken used to say. So maybe focusing on certain areas is going to be beneficial. But in reality, I think the messaging will be crucial in terms of saying, we only have to look at a couple of things that are happening worldwide. So we've seen, especially in South America, aside from Milei, which is doing great, no matter what the chatterati of the people like to say, well, the libertarian reforms that he's enacting, they're not perfect, but they're working clearly. And I think this week in Chile, I think tomorrow, there is going to be the runoff, or maybe next week, I can't remember, the runoff to have a sort of conservative, not particularly libertarian, because the libertarian candidates stopped at around 15%. But, the direction of travel is that one. It's just that we need to be exactly clear in terms of saying what is so different about the libertarian way of thinking. And just going back to the basics and saying, if you're looking for the government to do something for you, you're looking in the wrong place. You should ask the government to step back, because they made such a complete mess of things that I don't really know if there is a way out. So, as I like to say, we're just closing to one thing regarding the budget or anything else. Just a quick round of things to say, what is the one thing that we are not talking about in the public discourse and we should be talking about? So I will start with you, Martin. What is the one thing that if it were up to you, you would go there and say, we should be talking more about this thing, not particularly related to the economy, but if you have something on the economy. Yeah, well.
You've got me there. One thing I think I would look towards slashing VAT. It would get the economy going. It would drop inflation. It would allow a lot of businesses to escape, particularly if you raise the threshold too. And I can't see a drop in revenue for the government, as the Laffer curve, I believe, is coming into play here. It's too high, and businesses are not paying all they could.
Yeah, I think that is the kind of point. The whole point is that everybody seems to be maligning the whole supply side economics, the Laffer curve, but actually it's been proven right again and again and again. So at one point, it becomes counterproductive. The more you raise taxes, the less revenue you get, because people just leave or they stop doing. They are going galt, as the Ayn Rand novel used to say. They're just saying, I won't bother anymore. Why bother to get a promotion if I'm going to be paying more taxes and I'm having less money in my pocket? So Owen, again, what is the one thing you were particularly keen you would like to see in the public discourse that you're not seeing in the last few years or so?
I'd love to see people put real emphasis on the fact that I think there's a pitfall that a lot of people fall into, that we talk about. We say stuff like the economy, taxes, it's all numbers. That's not what it comes down to in reality. In reality, all of these measures that are being taken, increase in taxes, more regulation, subsidies for renewable, all this stuff is contributing in the end to tearing threads that bind society together. And what I mean by that is it's delaying people from doing and reaching these milestones in life. For example, I'm young. I don't want to insult the rest of my friends on this panel, but for me, it's a case of, I want to get married soon. I then want to have kids. But all of these measures that they take, they're effectively pushing that off further and further into my own life. And that's not just an individual thing. It's a whole society sort of problem, and it's tearing threads that keep community and this sense of togetherness going. And I don't think politicians talk about it enough, really, because, I don't think they understand the effects of their own policies.
No, well, I think it's, I would be rather more conspiratorial in that. I think it's working towards their goal, because they always have the same goal. They want to create the new man. They want to create a new society, completely atomized, where families don't matter, where threats don't matter, community don't matter, nationality doesn't matter. We're all cogs in the machine. We're just replaceable people that are going to be just moving on from one point to the next. And so it doesn't change anything if the entirety of crew gets replaced by people coming from Pakistan and Nigeria and stuff. It will be exactly the same. Sorry, guys, no, it won't be exactly the same. It won't be English anymore. It won't be British. The values change, the stuff change and stuff. So if you're not having children, well, somebody will have to take their place, but the country will not be the same. Again, I've seen a video, I think yesterday or maybe today, I can't remember, saying that there was in Hull a courier, as they tend to do. They just left a parcel on the driveway, and there was a lady coming on the road and said, "Oh yeah, there's a parcel there." She just grabbed it and took it away. She wasn't aware. Obviously, they had a ring cam, so they clearly saw her face. And they said, "Well, she didn't look particularly British and stuff," but that's not the point. The point is that in any other country, rather than Little Britain or whatever, you wouldn't leave a parcel on the driveway because people would get it. And so we've gone from a high trust society where you could leave it there, because I wouldn't dream about touching a parcel that belongs to someone. Or maybe I would go there, pick it up, bring it home, and then come back later when he gets home from work and say, hey mate, well, there was a parcel for you, here it is. That's what I would do. But we've gone from high trust society to low trust society, where I say, I cannot leave it there. I have to keep it in an Amazon locker or whatever, because otherwise they would steal from me. So again, Marco, what is the one thing that we should be talking about more and we haven't been talking a lot lately?
I think so. After all the uproar with the changes to inheritance tax for the farmers, I think now the conversation has quieted down. I think there are some rumors again to make some changes to basically raise the threshold of what a gift, a tax-free gift, from apparently 7 years to 10 years at the moment. So what I find it particularly despicable type of tax, where people are working all their lives, they want to pass down whatever asset they have managed to build in their life after paying a lifetime of taxes, then they get taxed again for having the luxury to pass on to your children what you've worked your whole life. And this is, I find it particularly despicable because it's the, let's say, the embodiment of the main sentiment of the left, which is envy. They consider that as unearned. So you haven't earned it. So because you're just inheriting it from your family, from your father or mother, you haven't earned it, so you need to pay taxes again. So I think the conversation on that has quieted down a bit, and I think we should be talking about more, because it's the worst kind of tax. I mean, I hate all taxes, but this one particularly is one that I believe should be removed first.
Yeah, I know, but that's the kind of point you're saying, because obviously if you're rich enough, you will have a trust, or you will have maybe in the, I don't know, Isle of Man or something. So you will not pay that. It's for the little people. Do as we say, don't do as we do, as always. They're always like that, because obviously they like to get their inheritance and stuff, but they know ways and you don't, so they need to have it. It's the same old communist thing. So I would like to thank you all for being here, for having had this conversation, rather than going out, I don't know, to just to have your Saturday afternoon doing something else, or maybe going to a football match, because that's a thing still. So thank again, Martin Day, Mercia Coordinator, Libertarian Party. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Luca.
Okay, thank you, Owen Ashworth, and again, thanks for being here and for your contribution. Lovely to talk to you.
No, thank you guys. It's been great.
Okay, and thanks again to Marco and stuff. And we had the early conversation to the usual weekly chat that we have. So we've been talking about pretty much the same thing, but in front of a camera. So that's again, thank you for being here, Marco.
Thank you, Luca, for organizing. That was fun. I hope our viewers have enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, obviously that's our hope. We really thank you all for having dedicated to us part of your Saturday afternoon. Your weekend is precious, so thank you for being with us. If you haven't catched up live, obviously you can watch it again on YouTube. And again, I will just ask you one thing, to give us a thumbs up so that it can help us with the algorithm. And if you know anyone, a friend, a mate, a colleague, or whatever that could be interested in hearing something about these kind of subjects, please send him the link to this show, and hopefully we will be there. So if we manage to get, just like to explain how we are at this point, if we manage to get some important guests like we had last time, Patrick Schumacher, and on the conversation with AI that is still available on our YouTube channel, we will try to organize something during the week around 7 p.m. UK time. In general, if we don't manage to have that, we think it's actually a good idea to have a conversation between us, or if we manage to get specialists, some expert on this kind of thing. So our regular time should still be Saturday 2 p.m. because we hope that it's going to be like you. Obviously, we will put a poll on our YouTube channel saying which would be a good time to have the show, or maybe you just leave a comment and we will answer to that. We thank you for being here. We hope you found this conversation interesting. And the only thing I have to do is to just wish you all an excellent weekend, a lovely Sunday, and we will see you again next week, Saturday, 2 p.m. with Give Freedom a Chance. Thank you all, and goodbye.